All right. Well, welcome to tonight's Outloud podcast presented by On the Path. And we're here with Joe Pina, who is the director and founder of Football for Life, amongst other things. Joe's been involved in an organization that we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, which is an unbelievable organization. Tom and I have both been involved in it to some degree and have contributed in a minor fashion. But Joe and his wife, Susie, have been the founders and the prime motivators to an organization that has done a lot of work with the American Indians, and we have is presented and put together football camps and clothes drives and worked on scholarships and financial aid for American Indians that live on the reservation. And this year coming up, they're scheduled for 3 or 4 different camps that are going to be run, including the fifth year, Joe, or fourth year at in South Dakota at the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation.
It'll be the fourth. It would have been the fifth, but 2020 got wiped out. So
Right. Well, welcome, Joe, and thanks for coming on and talking to us. I think it's a really amazing program that you put on and the things that you've done. And I think our listeners will get a kick out of being able to understand a little bit about more about what's going on and hopefully get involved and contribute in some form or fashion to the program. It's a really neat deal. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what got you started and what the program's all about, and then we'll ask you some questions and we'll delve a little deeper in.
sure. So just want to thank you guys for having me on. It's pretty exciting to be on my first podcast. Luckily it's with you guys that I know so well. But yeah, Football for Life, it just kind of came out of nowhere one day. And it's just taken off. It started with a trip that my wife and I, Susie and I, took out to South Dakota. We actually flew into Denver, drove into South Dakota, went to like the Black Hills area, and then drove across country to Wyoming, into the Devil's Tower. It was just kind of, it was a bucket list trip for me. And I've always been interested in Native Americans and the Native American cause. And that trip just kind of spurred me on to find something that I could help with. I actually started looking into an Indian reservation that just had their dormitories burnt down. And so I was looking, it's Crow Creek. It's on the other side of South Dakota near Sioux Falls. And I was looking into that and I'm trying to help them. And when I was looking into that, there was, it was a high school website and there was their athletic program, and I ran into a football film. And just being a football guy, I started looking and noticing things on the sidelines and noticing how the players and coaches were. And it was just very sparse. There's probably like 5 other players on the sideline, maybe, one football, no equipment or anything, and 1 or 2 coaches. And so for me, that's, from the programs that we're used to, that was just kind of shocking. And just seeing their fundamentals in that film and things, in my mind, I was just like, if I could get up there, I could help these guys, even with my, limited abilities in coaching. And that, I haven't got as far as some of you guys, but that was the key. But just looking at it in different ways, and that was 2012 when I actually went on that trip, and I immediately came back and started doing that research. So in 2017, St. Paul High School, the high school that we went to together, I guess they were running out of guys to pick for their Hall of Fame. So someone gave me a call and said, "You're in the Hall of Fame this year." So that kind of created the impetus to get this going. Because
wait a minute now, Joe. I gotta say, Joe, you're at least one of the top 3 DBs in school history. Since all three of us are played the same basic position in high school. So.
Well, out of the three of us here, I'm probably the third one.
You're the
Well,
one that
that's
you're the one that actually still looks like a DB. We all look like linemen now.
Yeah, I always say that's the evolution, right? We were skilled guys, and now we're all linemen.
That's right.
But yeah. So the impetus actually for that was that Hall of Fame night. You know,
Just the socializing, Joe, or just talking to other guys and getting fired up, or what happened that night?
So I was sitting there in the stands with Edmund Acuna, who we all know and love,
God bless him.
and I he's basically asking me about things that I've been doing, and what do I have on my mind. And I tell him, all right, Ed, you really want to know? And he's, Ed gets you to say things that you never said before, right? So
Just don't go on his podcast.
Right. He has one. So I told him about my idea to go up and get equipment donated down here in SoCal from all the connections that we have, and then take it up to South Dakota, and hopefully be able to help out coaching, not only coaching but with the equipment side of it. And he was like, "That's the greatest idea I ever heard of in my life," right? So what happened with that was I was like, okay, if you join me and you help me with this, I'll make it happen. And that's how it all started. And he was like, yeah, man. And of course he didn't go till the third year, but he was the kind of the spark that got my 5-year wait going. And if there's anything I could say, if you have an idea, don't wait for 5 years. If I wish this would have been our 8th year going up there, and I think
Right.
we would be a way farther along.
Sure.
What did you know? What did you know about the res life and the Native American situation and plight before this trip happened? Did you know it had any prior knowledge, or did it all hit you in the head on this one trip?
No, I've always been kind of a history buff, and always kind of a civil rights type of guy. I kind of got that from my dad. My dad was he grew up right down the street from the Whittier Police Department, and I could remember back in the Chicano Pride days, man. I could remember they had that protest. I think it was like 68, 69, maybe 70. They had some protest. And I was a little kid in the back of his truck, and there was a sign, that he put up on the side, and we just continually went around the Whittier Police Department with this Chicano power sign. So I always loved the Native American side of it, exactly, with the brown fist. I always looked into different things, the American Indian movement. I was always interested in that. And, the poverty side of it also is something that I've always seen. And I've always tried to do different things, that would help out in that regards. And it just kind of touched me when I really started looking into it, and seeing the statistics, the suicide level for teens, and things like that. And I just knew that, our work ethics, our pride in our lives and everyday living, we got that from sports, and we got that as a kid that had an opportunity to do all these different things, when we grew up. And I could see it, up there, that those opportunities weren't there for them, and they needed them. So that's all it really spurred me on to do.
Did you reach out, Joe, at some point to the Pine Ridge High School and talk to them, and was that the original contact?
No, it wasn't. Actually, I reached out to that Crow Creek High School, and I had a couple conversations with the coach. He was a new coach, and I can't even remember his name, but he ghosted me after the second conversation or so. So I waited about a month. I left him a couple of messages, and then I don't know if I ever told you what my criteria was, but I went out to the state of South Dakota's like on Max Prep's rankings, and Crow Creek was last. So the next one was Pine Ridge High School, and
Wow.
that's the next school I called.
Wow.
So I called Pine Ridge High School's coach is Sam Bravo, who we all know and love now. And it's a funny thing when we talk about it, but the first call, I left a couple messages, and when he called me back with the superintendent of schools, Mike Carlo, and he had Mike on the line, but never told me. And they're
Recon.
like, yeah, when we, after I got established with them and they trusted me, that first call, man, I had Mike on the call, and we were thinking if you were crazy or if you were legit, or they had no clue what was going on.
I mean, I think that's a huge issue, is sort of understanding the motivation of anybody that comes onto the reservation, right? I mean, it's just been a storied tradition of tragedy for people coming on, taking advantage, coming on, making promises, coming on, not doing the promises. I mean, there's definitely you had to do a lot of work just to get their trust, for sure. I mean, I think even after the first camp, would you agree with that?
Definitely. And there's something that I always say when people ask on our websites, on our Facebook page, there's no pictures of the poverty. There's no pictures of the despair. And I think, we focus on the good people up there, and there's definitely, everybody there is some of the hardest working and nicest people that I've ever been involved with. They find ways to overcome the hardest situations. But I read some things after we got going, and wanted to make sure, they have a term up there that I every now and then I'll mention, and they call it poverty porn. And if you notice, some of the nonprofits and people that go up there, every summer, they say they don't go up there in the winter. They only go up there in the summer because the winters are pretty harsh. But and I've been up there in the winter. I've been up there in October.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of fall. October, November, I went up there. But I've read articles where some of the people on the reservations really don't like you focusing on that. They think that you're trying to use that aspect to make money for yourselves. And I could tell you, every penny that we have raised for them, it's all gone back to them.
Yeah.
And I've never focused on the poverty. I mean, it's there. Everybody knows it, but I focus on the good that's up there, and I think that's why they really trust me and trust us going up there.
Is it true, Joe, that they kind of said no? They didn't really want to do what you were doing, and somebody made the decision, whether it was Mike or or whatever, said come anyway. Was tribal council really excited about you guys coming, or what was the deal?
Well, we just weren't sure in the beginning. We weren't sure if we were going to get clearance. And Pine Ridge High School's it's a state BIE school, or a federal BIE school, so Bureau of Indian Education. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things they do are semi not related to the tribal council. So I had to get approval through Mike Carlo, and I, like a lot of things that happen, things kind of get lost up there, or there's more important things for them to focus on than a football camp, for sure.
Right.
So we weren't sure when we went up there the first time if it was gonna happen, and it was awesome. I mean, the first camp was just awesome. The kids were great. Sam got every one of them, enthusiastic about us coming up there, and it just went really well that first time.
How many kids did you have? I'm sorry. How many kids did you have in the first one? Because I was able to go on the second one, but I didn't. How was the first one?
Yeah, so the first one we had about 25,
yeah,
and it was just Pine Ridge High School, the varsity team. The second one, so that was 2017, 2018. We went up to about 35, 40 kids. And then 2019, we had about 65, and we did 4 of the high schools on the reservation. Well, I should say 3 of the high schools. There's 4 high schools on the reservation. We did 3 of the high schools on the reservation, and 1 just outside at Ulrich's, which isn't on the reservation, but a lot of the reservation kids go to that high school.
I know
So
that.
yeah,
I
Go
know
ahead,
that
Tom.
when I got involved, what really grabbed me by the throat was and I don't want to we don't want to talk about the poverty porn and all that, but the idea of the suicide situation to me was like, oh, whoa, that's way out of whack. And that was something that I felt like I wanted to, and I had a lot of conversations with Rich Reese, who, that was his main point about going up there. And have you felt any of that? Has any of those numbers went down because of the program, or at the same time as the program? Has anything flattened out when it comes to, or can you speak about some of the issues with suicide? Or if you're not comfortable, I understand, but is there anything there that you can talk about?
Sure. I mean, I'm no expert on it. I I think the biggest thing that we've accomplished in football life with that is that we've kept in contact with a lot of the kids, that have been in our camps.
Mhm.
I have more Facebook friends than I've ever had in my life. And up there, that's how they communicate. It's hard for them to have a phone, or have, even when we go up, our phones don't work because of the lack of cell phone towers and things. But I have a lot of the kids that were in the camps as Facebook friends. A lot of times I'll see negative things that they post, and I'll jump on there and private message them and say, "Hey, man, what the heck? Keep your head up."
Mhm.
Not necessarily like you did the cutoff sign there, but I have told them, hey, if you want to play in college, you need to stop,
Right.
posting that type of stuff. But a lot of times you know, they use that to communicate, like I said, and they'll post things like, I don't even know why I'm here anymore, or what
Yeah.
the, stupid stuff like that.
Like helpless. Yeah.
Yeah, and and I'll jump in there, and I know other guys have too. Um, right now, and it's hard to know what's going on as far as if it's a suicide or if it's something else that happened. But I see a lot of things right now going on amongst those Facebook friends or Facebook postings, that there's a lot of tragedy going on right now. Kids are cooped up. They aren't able to play sports. Um, and I'll see a death of a young kid, and in the back of my mind, I'm saying, well, was that a suicide? And I hate to ask. There has been times I asked. Last year, there was a girl who went to college on a basketball scholarship. Gosh, I forget the college. I think it was in Kansas.
And
Um,
traditionally, basketball is the primary sport.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, but she, she just had started college, and there was a posting that she passed away, and everybody was saying how they couldn't believe it. So I asked one of the guys that we coached in the camp, and yeah, she committed suicide. And tough family lives, alcoholism, being abused. A lot of times I think mentally as much as physically. I've seen that. I've seen kids that are kind of in despair that were in our camps, and I try to help them how I could.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's there. I'm no expert on it, so I can't say specifically that Football for Life is helping, but I know that we try.
It was a really interesting when I first talked to you about it, Joe, and I did
Excuse
some
me.
research on it, did some research on Pine Ridge, and saw the way that they lived and the poverty. When I went back, I expected there to be this underlying sadness and upset, and it was I think I would probably had more. I was more upset than anybody else. I think you learn how to live with certain things, and it's your way of life. So you don't really, when I was in college, I befriended a guy who was getting picked on. There was a huge Native American population in Flagstaff, Arizona, in the late '70s. Whenever I was in school there, and I befriended a kid who was getting tortured about something, and they were making fun of him, and it was just walking down the street by the grocery store, and I pulled him out of a situation, and we made friends, and he invited me to go play basketball, and I played for 3 years in a row in the Indian League.
Oh wow.
And so I was one of the few, and I wasn't the only one, but I was one of the few guys that was a non-American Indian that played in those leagues. And one of the things that I learned from them is that there's almost a certain acceptance to the poverty level and to the society being kind of anti and looking down on them, that they just kind of accepted. And it like I said, it bothered me a lot more when I got there. I was really excited and thrilled at the way that the kids were so enthusiastic and happy and excited to be there. And I know I went on the second year, so I know there was a lot of different perception. You guys had already been there a year and proved yourselves, and they really, gosh, Joe could have been named mayor if if he ran for office there, because they everybody that I engaged away from the group, I asked them, what do you think about what's going on? And they all knew Joe by name. And so they all talked about you, Joe, in a way, and with really high regard. And it really made me feel like I was part of something that, that was really making an impact, and how you measure that, I don't know, except for the numbers, but that you stayed in contact with them. And can you tell us about a couple of the other programs that you've done in terms of, I know we talk a little bit about the jacket drive, and you sent uniforms and shoes and, all kinds of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that stuff too?
Yeah, sure. The first year that we went up, we did just like grassroots fundraising and equipment donations. We got donations from almost every contact you could think of, that we have. You guys know all the same contacts, and some of them were yours. Cerritos College donated a bunch of Reebok cleats because they were switching sponsors to Adidas. So he gave us all these cleats, Frank Mazzotta over at Cerritos, and he gave us cleats that were all like above size 12, and we're like, oh, I don't know if these are going to work out. And yeah, they were huge. Every one of those, there was about 20 pair of them, and every one of them were used by these kids. That's how much size they have over there.
Yeah.
We got, Tommy G got us full sets of uniforms from Servite High School. I have pictures of kids on the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade team in those Servite jerseys. And the funny thing about this, you know how we are with Servite, but I called or I sent an email to the new coach, or the coach that came back, Coach Thomas, and said, hey, Coach, check this out. Maybe you can show your boosters. And nothing, man. He's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I was like, come on, man. I guess they do enough humanitarian stuff that it's no big deal for them. But I thought it was pretty neat that those 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, I had a picture with I called them the Three Amigos, and they had Servite Friar jerseys up on the.
You know who it was,
Pine
Chuck?
Ridge.
It was Scott Meyer.
Scott Meyer, yeah.
So I reached out to Scott, and he was like, "Are you kidding me? Yeah, let's go. You want to climb up in the attic? Let's go." I'm like, "Sure, let's go."
Yeah, we had. How many sets did they have? They had at least 3 sets.
At least 3 sets, yeah.
I mean, those, they never had uniforms like that. I mean, those were Adidas. They were a little aged, but they were
tight-fitting ones.
Yeah, they were like the ones that barely fit over their shoulder pads and stuff. Styling uniforms. St. Paul gave us some old pants, and they used them. Funny as hell. We got. I think it was just pants. We got pants from Claremont College. And those pants were, college game pants. So you see, I'm wearing this Shadron Eagles shirt right now. We took them to the camp, at Chadron State. Football for Life paid for them. That was last year, 2019, and they all wore the Claremont pants.
Nice.
So Bobby Sierra loved that. I came back and sent him pictures of that, and Bobby Sierra hooked us up with those pants, and he loved seeing those pants. I go, they're getting good use, man. He loved that. But I mean, that's kind of the grassroots thing. Even San Clemente High School donated some equipment, some helmets.
Oh yeah.
Eric Diaz over in Texas he was at was it Prestonwood Academy at that time, Preston Christian Academy, and his head coach donated a pallet full of helmets. So
Nice.
that first year that we went, we sent a pallet out, and there's some pictures out on the website. The pallet was over 6 feet high. We got one of the local businesses that Richie Reese knew, and they gave us a discount on the pallet. I think we paid like $200 to ship a pallet of equipment out there. And it was like Christmas Eve for them, opening up all kinds of boxes when they showed up with football equipment.
Yeah, it was classic. Joe said, what do you guys got? You guys got anything? You know what? I said, Joe, we got more shoulder pads than I have.
That's right.
We have 2 times the amount of shoulder pads as guys we have in the program. So we were able to unload a bunch of shoulder pads and send them over too. And just the excitement that those kids must have had to get those things, and they must have been thrilled.
Yeah, like I was saying, we did a grassroots type of fundraising. So I had a GoFundMe page to start.
Mm-hmm.
We had like a dinner over at the Salsa Grill at Mark Sapien's restaurant.
That's right.
And he gave us some good money for that. So every little thing that we could do, we did that first year. And I think we raised about, I don't know, I think it was about $11,000, $12,000 from that little grassroots fundraising. And, getting up there, paying those type of expenses. But we also had enough money to buy them video equipment that first year. We paid for their Huddle subscription. You remember that? That was a big thing. They never had video of their team. The kids loved it. Those kids knew how to break down film and cut up their highlights better than I did. I didn't even know what Huddle was at the time. I was asking you all the time.
Oh man,
what's going on with this? What do I do here? And right before the season, about a week before the first game, Sam calls me up and says, "Hey, Coach, I went to go get the girdles. They're suiting up first day of pads. I went to go get the girdles out, and the mice got into them. So all his girdles got eaten up." So I was like, "Call up your equipment person and see if they can get you some girdles before the game, and tell them I'll pay for them as soon as I can." So we paid about $1,500 for his girdles that first year because the mice ate them.
How did that go, Joe, with Coach Bravo, who's an unbelievable guy? But talk a little bit about him and how he, how that all started with him and him allowing you into the program like they did, and how'd that all go?
Sam and I, we're like brothers now. Sam, I think like I said the first call, they were a little leery, but he was dying for help. It's hard for them to find coaches, just like everything else. I mean, here, our love for football, we did it for free, right? When we first started, getting right out of high school, a lot of times we do it for free. Not very many people are going to be up there doing things for free. They got to survive other ways, by getting paid somehow. They have to. So just by offering that help to him, it was something that no one ever did for him. We not only helped him, financially and equipment wise, and Tom helped a lot in the beginning. We spent a lot of time showing him how to use Huddle, setting up his practice plans, and just trying to help him, learn the game to try to pass it on to the kids. So, he's always gracious. He's one of the toughest guys I ever seen. He's told me some of these stories that he's went through. That second year when you went, Chuck, and we went to the sweat lodge with them, you know, if you remember that Mike and Mike Carlo's house, they were setting up the Sundance.
Yep.
And I
Well,
don't know.
Sam's the guy that does it for his family, right? The Sundance for his
Yeah,
family.
he has in the past, and so he told me stories about that and things that he did for that. And you know, we always say what we went through for Hell Week. Well, I don't think any one of us could have went through that, you know, and that's just like a religion for them. But
No, I remember when we were out there, he would be like, it would be in between practice. And I remember they took us to the weight room / wrestling room thing. And
right,
then like all of a sudden I'm kind of looking around like, where's Sam? And Sam's out there pouring concrete in the, like,
right,
cause his job had to do with construction and he was out there pouring concrete in between practices. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is, just tough as
right.
nails, you know, just iron, just steel, you know.
Well, yeah, well, he pretty much has to do everything, and you know, with their winters,
Oh
they
man.
don't really take care of the grass because it's so snow or whatever. So when you during the season, he's the one that mows the lawn. He's the one. He pretty much does everything that he has to do to try to get the season ready. You know, there's no equipment manager. He washes the clothes when he has to. You know, but yeah, and the reason why he was doing that concrete was um, during the season he works at the school, but only while school is in, and they only have enough funds to pay a certain amount of them during the summer.
Wow.
So
Oh.
they kind of rotate, you know, and I think that summer it was his time to work there this summer. So when
No,
we were waiting
I
for
just
him,
assumed that was his normal deal. Like, I mean, that was just his lifestyle, man. It was just constant state of motion, man. It was awesome.
well,
He's awesome guy to
even
meet.
even outside the school, you know, they do cattle wrangling.
Hmm.
So you know, it's if you remember when we drove out to Mount Rushmore and that area, the Black Hills, all those cattle ranches
Yeah.
that were on the way. So Sam has a crew that goes out and wrangles the calves when it's branding time. And the crew is his son Dante and a couple of his nephews. They got like six guys, his brother, you know,
You're not gonna
and
believe me. You're not gonna believe me when I say this, but my son went to Shadron to play football, which is not
uh,
far from Pine Ridge.
right.
And while he was there in the spring, he got wrangled up into being the doing the branding and stuff like
Right.
that. I got pictures. I got pictures of my surfer son
Right.
wrangling. I mean, I'm assuming it's the same era, the same time, and I
Right.
know for him it was a fundraiser. Like they were fundraising back for the school, and I'm assuming they're doing the same thing with Sal. I that's so funny. I
It's the
can't
You're right.
believe.
exact
You're right.
same
I
thing.
can't see Kyle. I can't see Kyle doing that.
Oh, I got pictures of it. Okay, I'm gonna put a picture on this video of him doing it.
That'd be great.
Right.
So you started to talk about going out to the sweat. I don't know if you're going to tell. You had a story that had to do
Well,
with that, but
well, if you remember, we got there. Uh, Mike had a bunch of guys working,
I
and
don't
if you
remember.
remember, they were building the shade for the Sundance, and they had these big telephone poles about 10 feet long, right? And they were carrying them
Mm-hmm.
and putting them in place. And then when they got a couple in place, and Mike came over to come and talk to us, and it was a little while after we had been sitting there at the cars waiting, and he he came over and told me, he goes, "Hey, sorry for making you guys wait, but I always tell everybody to come like an hour early so I can put these guys to work." I was like, "Well, don't look at us, man, because we ain't picking up any of those telephone poles."
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I remember him walking over, and I was in awe, and I my big experience is watching movies and seeing some of that stuff, and that's where and then some of the history stuff on the internet, but standing there and watching them build that shade and do what they were doing, it was we were out in the middle of the plains, and it was the most quiet and peaceful and amazing place. And when he came down, and I think he said something to the effect of, "Make sure you leave all your phones," and come on up. But they were so gracious, and they were so, it was such an honor to be invited to something like that, that it almost felt like going to church, which I
Oh, it
guess
was.
that's what it is, and we
Yeah.
walked up there and what an amazing experience it was. It was something you can't even put words to it. I could tell the story, but the words are don't do it justice. It was quite an experience, a very spiritual experience.
It definitely was one of the most awesome experiences that I had up there. I, not to make light of it, but you remember how we went in and everybody kind of sat around the stones and around the fire, right? So I was first, and then Susie was right behind me. So when I went in, I ended up being right at the door, right at the opening, right? And Susie was right next to me. And no, and Mike came in last, right? He was the last one to close the door. And Mike tells me, kind of real quietly and politely, and he says, "Hey, Joe, we usually let the women sit by the opening."
Nice.
I was like, "Oh man!" So
Well,
that
and
was funny.
in my fear of it all and not the unknown, we went in, and I went around, and I was opposite the door. So it was like there
Right.
was no way I was getting out,
Can't tap out, Chuck. You can't
Oh
tap
Lord,
out.
it was it was one of those things, and I scrunching down in my back. It was really an intense moment, and
Yeah.
then one of the guys we were with had to get up and get out because he
Right.
just couldn't sit because he had knee problems and all that kind of stuff. And wow, once they and I think they probably took it easy on us a little bit too with the heat
Well,
factor.
so here's the thing about that. So if you guys remember, and this was the greatest thing for me was Cecil Apple was in the sweat with us, and Cecil Apple was one
So,
of their.
so tell everybody who Cecil Apple is, because he's legend.
Cecil Apple was on our first year camp.
Yeah.
He was one of their seniors,
Stud.
and he had a great year that first year that we did the camp. That first year after we did the camp, the year before they won one game, and the first year after the camp, they went 7-3 and made the playoffs for the first time in about 15, 20 years. So Cecil was in the sweat, and Cecil also made the All-Star game that we brought him to Southern California with. But the last, the sweat has like the 4 quarters, if you remember, right? So
Yep.
you have like 4 sessions, and he sung the last session, and it just meant so much to me, to have him do it and have him in there. But the funny thing was, the next day at the camp, he came, and I asked him, so what do you think, Cecil? Did you think us California boys are going to make it in the camp? I mean, in the sweat? And he's going, actually, Coach, I didn't. And I go, come on, we're football guys, Cecil. We're going to tough it out. He goes, yeah, I just didn't think you guys. And I asked him, did you guys take it easy on us? And he goes, no, that was actually pretty hot.
That was a legit one.
Yeah, that was a legit one.
How many people were in there, Chuck? How many people were in there?
I think there were probably 12, 10.
Well,
10?
there was
Yeah.
probably close to 15, because
15,
there was at least 8 of us,
Yeah.
and there's probably 7 or 8 that were
that's
there
true.
already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, it's
was
nothing like you can imagine. I mean, when they allowed it, they invited us to come over a few of us and grab the pitchforks and load in the rocks, because the rocks were all outside in the fire, and now we're glowing hot red. And just picking those up with the pitchforks and walking it over into the sweat and dumping it in, it started to scare me at that point. That was one little rock that I was taking, and it was just unbelievably hot. When we got in there, there was the anxiety is how hot is it going to be? And sitting right in front of it is the rocks, and they're pouring water on them, and then and it's pitch black, and they start to sing, and it's the most beautiful, unbelievable, meditative kind of a moment where you're trying to survive because that, I mean, it's hotter than you ever could have imagined, and they're singing these chants and songs, and it's very surreal and spiritual. And so one of the things that they told us when we came in is you have to find a purpose, and I'm not sure if that was the word they used, but find a purpose of being here, and think to yourself of something that you want to pray for, and then be able to pray for that while you're absorbing this intense heat. And so as they start to pour the water on, and the steam hits the thing, I'm thinking it's going to come in my face, and I don't feel anything. And all of a sudden it rises to the top, and I can remember it just came down, and it comes down your back and hits you from behind. And it was, and at one point, I think mid-second quarter, I found a little bit of a groove, because it was like biting nails through that first quarter.
Yeah.
It was like I was just holding on, hoping that I didn't freak out, number one, or it wasn't too intense. And I just kept telling myself, Susie's in there. Susie's in there, hang on. And then I found a little bit of a space to think through my prayer thoughts. And at about mid-second quarter, I was able to breathe through that, knowing that there was going to be a time where we would stop for a second, pause, and they even opened the door and stuff. But man, live, it was the most, I mean, we could have been in there for 10 minutes or 10 hours. The time just, evaporated. And it was, like I said, it was an amazing experience. And I'm sure each individual was a little bit different, but, then we come outside, and, and that was another whole deal where, we came out, and now you're out. It's like Dances with Wolves. You're out on the plane.
Right.
There's nothing around. You just came out of this most intense sweat deal that, you made it through, and I was kind of like crawled out a little bit and just kind of sat there. And then we walked up the hill and sat down in a big circle, and they brought out their peace pipes, or their spiritual celebration pipes, and it went around the circle, and everybody smoked the pipe, and it was just so unbelievably beautiful that I still have memories of that, and I have dreams about being in sweat and stuff. It's
Oh man.
Hey, note to self, I'm making sure I'm by the door on this deal. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, the air never felt so good to me.
Yeah.
And the sunset was never as beautiful. It was just something else, and I hadn't probably smoked in, I don't know how long, man, 25 years, 30 years. And, I have to be honest, I didn't quit the sweat, but when that pipe came around the second wedge, I kind of faked it, because if you haven't smoked for 25 years or 30 years, you don't want to partake. But it's not anything, I think there's a lot of misconceptions on that. You hear all these new age gurus saying they're doing stuff, and this was the most authentic thing I've ever been through, and it's like Chuck says, it's just a spiritual thing. There's no weird things going on in there. It's a prayer. I've had times where things are going bad down here, or we're having a medical procedure done or something, and I call Mike and say, hey man, you guys are having a sweat this week? Well, keep us in your prayers, because something's happening. And he's like, no problem, Joe. And
Now they do that once a week, once a month, once a quarter. How often do they do that?
The funny thing about that is Mike Carlo would always post a fire emoji on his Facebook page, and that's how I knew he was doing it. And I would say he was doing it about every week.
Oh wow!
I would say it's a weekly thing, but he got off of Facebook, so I haven't seen him doing it. But I'm pretty sure it was weekly back when he was, on Facebook and communicating through that.
So I've heard a lot of things that sound like rumors about what life is like with COVID on the reservation. Obviously, you're a first person. You're in touch. What is it like out there for those guys right now?
In talking to Sam, there's no kids at Pine Ridge High School right now, so they're all virtual learning. And that's one of the things we did. they when they first started virtual learning in September, um, a lot of the kids don't have the technology to do that at home. So I asked Mike, you guys going to have enough computers? And he says, well, the government through I think it was called the CARES Act gave us money, but it came so late, we're not going to get the computers until like November. And I was like, well, I got the money I was going to use on the camp this year, and we can't have the camp with, 10 or 12 computers help you guys. And he goes, yeah, that means we get, 12 kids going right away. So I got on Amazon and I had them 12 new computers in a week.
Yeah.
So that was pretty awesome. We spent about $4,000 or $5,000 on that. It was about 4,000, but that's the first thing. Everything's the campus is completely closed. Now there are other campuses that are trying to have in school learning. And when I say completely closed, I mean you cannot even go on the football field. You can't go on the track. A lot of people used to go use the track, and I'm not talking about students, but just the community. And they aren't even allowing that. No basketball courts are open. The gym's never open anymore. So that's, I think, one of the toughest things for them. Sports, Friday night lights for them is as big as it is in Texas.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Remain standing while the color guard departs.
Basketball games are huge there, but all that was kind of shut down, especially for Pine Ridge High School. There's a new school there called Lakota Tech, and they're trying to get their season in for basketball. A lot of kids from Pine Ridge High School transferred to Lakota Tech, and that's going to hurt them. It's going to hurt them bad. But as far as the staff, it's really weird. Like the staff is still working at the school, so like the cafeteria staff is making food for the kids, and they deliver it to their houses.
Wow.
But only the cafeteria staff stays in that area. Any of the administrators have to stay in their area. Teachers have to stay in their classrooms. And Sam has to stay out. He's security guard, so he stays out in the perimeter and just watches the school.
Is there any validity to how hard it hits the Native American population? Or is that all wives' tale business? All fake?
No, it's hitting them hard.
Yeah.
And the tribal council is doing all they can to try to keep it out. There's basically like four real roads coming in, paved roads. So you got the one highway that goes right down the middle, east to west or west to east, and then the north to south one. And they had border patrol at each entrance, and they weren't letting anybody that wasn't living on the reservation on. They basically cut them out. The first people to bring it in actually came to California for a medical procedure, and they got COVID. And they were a teacher and her husband that were at an elementary school, and they banned them from the reservation because they brought COVID to the reservation.
Wow.
So that was when I heard that, I was like, well, we're definitely canceling our whole thing because we're not getting banned.
I mean, for the people who don't know, the reservation is the largest square mileage wise in America, right? It's the largest reservation in America. Is that true? Or
I believe
right
so.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest, and it's one of the poorest.
And the circumstances don't bode well if you're trying to social distance, because a lot of the families live with, lots of generations of the family in the same
like Italy.
small dwellings, and there's not a lot of stores, and there's not a lot of places to get food and those kind of things. So it's really tough for them to be able to distance. And there's, I mean, the amount of people just living together, if one person gets it, it's really, I can't even imagine how you would keep it from the rest of the family. That's and it seems like that I've seen a lot of that from different reservations across the country, talking about that throughout the last 6 or 7 months as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think they have a hard time too right now. The sad thing that Mike told me was it's being transmitted during funerals, because people come from all over to go to a funeral, and they, it's family, so they're all allowed in, and one person has it and that whole family gets it, and it's just a sad thing. It's hitting the older people really bad. They're trying to protect their elders. Their elders are basically some of the last lines of their cultural history. The ones that still know how to talk Lakota and
the language.
And the language. Mike has a nonprofit that's trying to preserve the language, and it's an awesome nonprofit. But anyways, from what they're telling us, they can't go to the store and get disinfectant wipes and things like we could. Of course, it's got kind of hard here too, but even for them, just getting to a store is hard. All their closest stores are 45 minutes off the reservation, and going to Rapid City for the bigger stores is an hour and a half away. So, if they go out to do that, they're risking, getting infected and bringing it back to the reservation. So it's really tough for them. It's not like here where we have the capabilities to wear a mask and find masks and, find what we need. They basically don't have that opportunity.
Joe, I'd love to talk about a few more things before we let you go. I know every year that you've run a golf tournament that has been real successful, and if you'd like to talk about that a little bit. I know that we'd like to talk a little bit about the clothes drive that you do, and then I'd like to talk a little bit about Susie's involvement and all the things that you guys have done to get kids, out of school and into the next level. So tell us a little bit about the golf tournament and how that's gone, and what Walking Shield has been involved to help with certain things. Can you talk a little bit about those things?
Right. So you mentioned Walking Shield, and one of the big challenges for me initially was getting set up as a nonprofit. I never had experience doing that, so I went straight to the idea of getting the camps going, and not the actual, I guess you could say, business side. So I focused on getting the first camp together, and then when we started doing the fundraising, the old nonprofit status came into question, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with that? So I started looking into that. I was about ready to do that on our own, and we met John Castillo from Walking Shield, and John basically took me under his wing and said, you could use ours until you're ready to do it. And it's just been such a good relationship that we're basically a program under Walking Shield now. We're part of.
That's in Orange County, Joe? Walking
Yeah,
Shield?
they're in Costa Mesa, right by the John Wayne Airport. But they've been doing great things for the Native American community for like 20 years plus.
Wow.
And it's been a godsend, really. I haven't even had to worry about that stuff. It's not, I'm funnel all the money through them and just send the receipts and invoices to them, and everything's taken care of by them. So that's been awesome. I think they love it because we're expanding their reach too. We doing some things on South Dakota. One of the things that they do, not just in South Dakota but all over, is they have an eyeglass program, and they what's it called? It's called One Sight, and they bring all the equipment to the reservations to do all the testing for the kid's eyesight. And if the kid needs a pair of glasses,
That's awesome.
They cut them right there, and by the end of the week, they have the glasses free of charge. So we actually had that scheduled for 2020 on Pine Ridge at the high school, and all the prep work was being done, and then 2020 came, got wiped us all out.
See, in
So we're
2020 Envision should have been a natural.
Yeah, 2020.
right, that's right. One site, and we would have been great. So we're still going to try to do that in the future with them. But yeah, they were a godsend. So through Walking Shields, we started running our golf tournament with them, and the golf tournament started off. I mean, it's been great. We've been able to basically fund all of our expenses, and heck, the first year we did the golf tournament, we made enough to buy Pine Ridge High School new uniforms. Some of our guys are graduates of the University of Utah, and Coach Bravo told me I want to keep the stripes on my pants and the stripes on my jerseys on the shoulders. And it just so happened I was able to find a company to make them, and they look just like the Utah Utes. So our 3 Utah Utes were jazzed about that. But yeah, our golf tournament, I actually set a new date for this year and see if we can't get it in. But June 4th, put it down on our calendars. We're bringing it back over here to San Juan Hills. I'm going to try to make it with all the COVID restrictions in mind. So there's going to be some differences, but hopefully we had pretty good success, and we did it 2 years in a row and nearly filled it up. So I'm hoping we do it again this year.
Yeah, it's a great tournament. It's a lot of great people, and just this time spent together. Like any great golf tournament, it's the interaction and the networking you get to do, and visiting all the guys that are interested in contributing to such a great situation that you built, Joe. And I know that there's a lot of different programs. Talk a little bit about the people that you I know you got kids to help kids get to college. I know Susie did a lot of working with the people at the school and on her own, and then I know you brought kids out here to California to get that experience. Talk about the individual things that you did through those things.
Right. So we've been trying, and this was kind of Susie's input, but Susie was a library manager for the County of Orange, and that was one of the things. They didn't have a library. It's closed up, and no librarian. So that was one of the things we were trying to get them to focus on. And I hate to quit saying 2020, but Mike actually had a librarian on the budget, but when 2020 hit, that got wiped out too. So we are still actively trying to help them get their library up and running. And Susie's a big part of that. She's worked with Mike trying to hire a librarian, and when one gets hired, we're hoping that she can go up and teach them how to run it. But that's something, that's down the road, and not part of football, and that's what we're trying to stress. When you mentioned the kids that we've helped get to college, one of the kids that we helped was the female team manager, and I kind of made a point that we helped out a girl because I tell everybody our name is Football for Life, but the key word in that is life. So we're trying to affect everybody's life up there, not just the football team. So we helped one of the gals get into Arizona State, and gave her a $500 scholarship. We helped a couple kids. You guys probably remember I was talking about the JC situation, and there's no JCs within the state of South Dakota, and no opportunity if they want to play football at the next level, except if they go to a 4-year school. So we helped a couple kids get into the Minnesota West College, DJ Vitalis, and
DJ.
Okay, what does football mean to you?
Football, from like the very first day I played football, I knew like it was just something I had to be a part of, man. the feeling of running the ball, feeling of being around all your teammates, learning new things with your coaches, getting a relationship with your coaches, a relationship with every single one of your teammates, especially your seniors. And then as time goes along, man, the bond just builds and it's unbreakable, just like a helmet.
So what do you think about Football for Life group coming out?
Oh man, I love it. I'm so thankful, man. Just thankful for everything you guys come down and do. Thankful for all the coaches applying your time. Like, most of the stuff like this, it usually costs like $300 to $200, man. And you guys are out here doing this stuff for free, man. I'm thankful. Nothing but thankful for that. All the hard work we're learning, the drills, the stuff we could learn to do on our own, the experience you guys are leaving with us. And shit, man, I'm just thankful to be a part of it. Thankful it's my senior year and you guys are helping us out, man.
All right, we'll see you in a few weeks.
Hell yeah.
And Halen Bad Bear. So
nice.
they each played over there for a year at Minnesota West College. So, things like that. This year we're helping William DeBry, who's at Fort Lewis College in Colorado. We paid for all his books this year. So,
Nice.
everything that we can do, we're trying to do, help them out. The first year of the camp, we wanted to show some of the juniors who were going to be seniors what it's like in California on the football field. So we brought them for a week over here, had them work out with your team at Pioneer High School.
Right.
We brought 3 of them down. We took them to the Fire Academy, the LA Fire Academy, and they went through a training session with all the new recruits. We got them into Disneyland. They loved that, of course. They worked out over at St. Paul's for a day. So, just trying to, get them the different aspect of, get them in that competitive mode, to see what they need to do all year round to be successful in the game of football.
I can't imagine
yeah.
what the population density did to them. Just seeing so many people just jammed in. Because I was at Rapid City and it's nothing like what we
There's
have.
nothing between. There's nothing from.
I'll tell you what, though, they
Shadron.
handled themselves with great character, and they were so happy to be there, and they represented themselves and their tribes and their Football for Life really well. And the only issue I had was trying to compete with they came to me after they went to Bosco and to try to compete with all the garb that they got and the shoes and things that they got. But what a great experience it was for their kids, and it was a great experience for our kids to be exposed to that, and then to reach it out, find out some of our kids are still talk to some of their kids on Facebook, and stuff like that, and to see some of the things that our kids were able to see through those guys and talking to those guys, that I think it inspired them to be a little bit better people as well. So that's a fantastic deal. What do you got in the future, Joe? I know we got a bunch of camps that are scheduled, and a little bit of a different organization with getting some different people out to different camps, and but it sounds like the expansion is going really well, and everybody that's involved seems to be really excited about the future.
Yeah, all depending on this pandemic situation, but we're trying. 2020 we had 4 camps scheduled. Got blown out of the water, but we're trying to do the same thing for 2021. We're trying to go down to the Fort Yuma Indian Reservation in May. That's right on the border of Arizona, Mexico, and California. The coach there is going to be a new coach, so he's really excited. He's trying to do a little competitive camp between the schools that are on the reservations in that area.
Nice.
There's 4 or 5 schools that are primarily have reservation kids on it, and he's going to try to bring them in. So that's one here that our California coaches are going to be concentrating on. I'm trying to kind of regionalize the coaching to try to be able to expand it out as far as we can, and also save on some expenses instead of having to fly everybody out. We could rent a car in one place and have them drive if it's a little closer. So May is Fort Yuma. June is Pine Ridge. We'll have all 4 high schools up there again, possibly 5. We'll probably get more kids from Red Cloud. I'm making a little bit more inroads in the Red Cloud area. Red Cloud is right down the street. It's an amazing situation. Based on our rivalries that we used to have, we would never even want to talk to each other. But those guys up there, right down the street, and they're still like brothers, except when they're on the field. So it's kind of a unique situation. But Pine Ridge is in June. Then we're gonna go to Santa Fe Indian School in New Mexico. That one's gonna be pretty exciting too. The athletic director there is talking like 65 to 80 kids. There's at least 5 reservations, primarily primarily Navajos, I think, and the reservations are all within like a half an hour to an hour of Santa Fe Indian School, so that's going to be a big one. And then we're going to go up to a reservation called Hoopa Valley in Northern California. It's kind of where Eureka is. The exciting thing about that, so let me go back. The New Mexico camp is going to be handled with Eric Diaz over in Texas. And he's going to bring a staff from Texas, and they're about 6 hours from there. So with that in mind, the Northern California camp, I'm hoping that Dave Ortega up in the Cal Berkeley zone puts together a crew for us. He said, if it fits in with his schedule, he's still coaching up at one of the high schools up there. And if he can, he's going to put together a staff for us and take care of the Hoopa Valley. Now, there'll still be some of us that go, a couple of us that go to each camp, but to save on expenses, I'm trying to get those regional coaches up in that area. But Hoopa Valley is going to be a beautiful camp. I don't know if you know where that is, but it's kind of up in the Eureka area,
Shasta and all that.
Yeah, and it comes into a valley and just forest all the way up the hills and mountains around it, and then in the middle there's the school and the town. It's Bigfoot era, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Sasquatch.
Yeah, I'm going to be at the Bigfoot Museum as soon as I can. I'll tell you.
I have to grow my beard out for that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe,
so, yeah, so I mean,
obviously,
Four Counts is it's a big nut that we're trying to chew, but we're going to get there someday.
So obviously you've been doing this for quite a few years now, and obviously you have to have some sort of wins and victories and things like that to keep you sustained. What are some of the victories that you didn't expect to happen that have come to you and just energized you to keep your mission going?
Well, it's just the family that I've gained, especially up in Pine Ridge. The people there have just kind of adopted me up there, and I would basically do anything I could to help them. Even outside of the Football for Life, Susie keeps telling me, "You're spending some of our money. You better get that under control." but I think that's it. Being getting up there in our age, right? This is just something that kind of makes living a little easier, helping people and giving back to, I think, a community, that is close to my heart. That's the biggest thing for me, as far as like the kids and things, helping these kids get into school. And, that first year I was amazed that a kid couldn't figure out, or it wasn't that they couldn't figure it out, but they didn't have the technology to do an application.
Right.
So, I was helping Cecil do his applications. And, when you're doing that stuff, you just develop relationships. So I think that's the biggest surprise for me is the relationships I have with the people that I've touched. And I'm just looking forward to making more, all these other places.
It was touch and go that first year, Joe. Like we didn't know who was on our side and who wasn't on our side, That's,
oh, yeah.
You've come a long way, man.
Yeah, I mean, that first year we were up there, we were kind of flying under the radar.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like every time I turned around, who's that guy? Who's that guy up there watching us? And the funniest.
I was waiting to go to jail, man. I was like, they're gonna take me in. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, but
it's amazing what happens when you just have a good heart. All of us. I mean, there was nobody that nobody gives any. They're just all there, just trying to do the best, and it just people know. They can feel it. They feel. I can feel it in my classroom. coach I know is, on the football field. You spent many, many years between the lines. I mean, people know. I mean, how you make them feel, how you care about them. It's a real thing, and,
Oh
and
yeah, I
football,
mean,
football is such an amazing conduit for that. I don't know what makes it so special, and maybe you could speak to that, but it's such a great portal to get in somebody's heart, I think.
right. Well, it's a brotherhood building environment, and that's what we all have been through, and we've all known each other for going on probably 30 years now, or
Yeah.
more. Chuck and I probably going on 40.
Yeah.
So it's lifelong relationships, and whether you're building them now or 40 years ago, those relationships are going to stick with you.
Yeah, it's a great group of coaches, the guys that are involved, and there's a lot of experience involved with all the coaches that are involved. And but there's no doubt about the straw that stirs the drinks, to quote a famous Edmund Acuna, to come full circle. Joe and Susie have been the ones to make this thing go, and done an amazing job. And we're all real proud to be involved in the small ways that we are. And we're hoping that we can, through the podcast and through some other things that we're doing, be able to get the word out a little bit, and hopefully help to supplement some funds and get people involved to help donate and be involved a little bit. We'll put up some websites and some emails and some places to reach out to you guys with Football for Life. And but we're really excited about having you on, Joe, and having you get a chance to talk about the program. We have a lot of respect for it, and I think everybody else that gets a chance to listen a little bit will as well.
Well, I appreciate you guys, man, and I couldn't do Football for Life without you and all the other guys. If you don't mind, I should probably mention their names. Of course, Chuck, you're highly involved with this, and Chuck will be running the camp down in Fort Yuma. Tommy G's been there from day one, so he's been a great help. Richie Reese is going to put together all the camps for us, and then coordinate them from there. Eric Diaz over in Texas is with us. Hank Mendaka, University of Utes product, is with us. Jeff Reyes, long time. I've known Jeff probably since I was 8 years old, a first grader at St. Mary Ann's, all the way to today, man. Dave Cody. Now, you guys all met Dave. I don't know if you met him, Tommy, but
I have, yeah.
6'8", former NFL player, and he went to Lucerna High School. I don't know how he got away from us over at St. Paul's. I can't believe it. I thought we had the area locked down, but yeah. I'm glad to have him for Football for Life. Then we got Chris Jackson and Justin Jackson. Chris went to UCLA, played up in the Seattle area, and Justin went to his brother Justin went to Utah State. So that's kind of a neat little rivalry with our University of Utah guys. And then we have John Gonzalez helping us out still. So pretty much from day one, everybody that started with us is still helping in some fashion, and it's just awesome. But yeah, like I said, I appreciate that you guys are still aboard, and I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome, good deal. All right,
you want to do the list? I need to. Each time we do this, we do a little speed round. So I'm going to ask you some questions. You got to go fast, okay? Are you ready?
Oh no!
It's not calculus or anything, All right. All right, here you go. Let's start with an easy one.
Do you have some speed round music?
I'll put some in for you.
You gotta work on it.
I'll put some in for you. Put a little pressure. Make it. Look at him. He gets up on the edge of his seat, Chuck. He's like leaning in. All right, here we go. Elvis or Jerry Lee Lewis?
Elvis.
Beatles or Stones?
Stones.
Chuck D or LL Cool J?
LL.
Ford or Chevy?
Chevy.
Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
Whiskey or tequila?
Oh, that's a toss up. I don't drink anymore, but back in the day I didn't care.
He's like, vodka. Android or
My dad-
iOS?
iOS.
Baseball or football?
Football.
Blonde or brunette?
Brunette.
J-Lo or Selma?
My wife's in the other room, so I better not answer that one.
Okay, fair. No, that's fair. Batman or Superman?
Batman.
World War II or Vietnam?
World War II.
And the last one, Vin or Chick?
Ooh. It's in the refrigerator, baby.
Okay,
Chick.
Chick. Good call.
I love Vin too, though. So
I think I need to probably politically correct go through some of these things because it's a little misogynistic. It's a little testosterone heavy. J-Lo and Selma. I mean, come on. That's not
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, and you wanted Susie to be sitting right here next to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Susie or Susie?
Yeah.
Susie.
That's easy. All the way.
I'm waiting for someone to pick a third answer on all of them. You know, we had one guy that answered just the first one. So when I said Elvis or Jerry Lee, Elvis. Coke or Pepsi, Coke. Ford or Chevy, Ford. Like it was just the first thing that popped into his head.
Well, see, I know you.
I was editing it and I was like, this guy, it's all the first ones. I don't know. He didn't.
I know you guys are music connoisseurs. I only picked the one that I knew. I didn't know the other one.
Yeah.
Jerry Lee. Shoot, I don't know who that guy is.
Probably Chuck D was like, who's that?
Chuck D. I don't know who that is. I knew LL though.
Right on. Well, let's do a lot of cross promoting, and we'll get the website up wherever we are and wherever you are, and then I know Chuck's gonna hit social media real hard with the promotion because we haven't really launched. I mean, a few people know what's going on, but like, I don't think we've had an official launch, have we, Chuck? I don't think so. Yeah, so I mean, at some point there's gonna be hopefully a lot of people.
I'll make sure I let you know when we officially launch, Tom.
Yeah.